What is up, my dudes? Welcome back to Storytime with your favorite Reddit fairy. My name is Lorna, and today I'm getting into a brand new subreddit. I might have covered it in one of my medleys before, maybe one or two stories, but this subreddit, which is r/TalesFromTheSquadCar, is about just that, about criminals and deputy sheriffs and officers and correctional officers, and so it's about to get a little bit crazy, I think. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get right into it. First insane pursuit, posted by user Diamond Ruby Gem. I work for my country's national level highway patrol. I'd prefer not to identify my country because that would identify my agency. But anyways, here's a story. First, it's important to know that the actual pursuit part of police pursuits, at least here, usually don't last long. 3 options for a typical pursuit are it being over in a few seconds to maybe 2 minutes, darted with a GPS tracker and discontinued until apprehended later, or prevented before they even are started. While on normal patrol, I was assigned to join an apprehension being run by a special unit. The specialty unit is designed to make high-risk apprehensions while moving in highway traffic, aka an attempt on the third pursuit option. Essentially, 5 unmarked cars from the unit surround the suspect vehicle in normal traffic. They then activate their emergency lights, force the suspect to the side of the road, and perform a criminal stop for wanted suspects. If the car tries to run, they also have specialty equipment like GPS location darts to attach to cars, radio hijacking to speak to the suspect over their car's radio, spiking systems, and even remotely force some cars to stop. My job was probably the simplest and least specialized of anyone there. Provide a traffic break behind the proposed stop to ensure the team had a sterile area and help the stop once it happened. Well, the stop didn't happen just quite as planned. They tried to stop him and he just rammed right through the blockade. 4 of those GPS darts I was talking about didn't effectively stay on the vehicle. They couldn't use their spike arm on the tires. The car was too old to remotely stop. A radio hijack wasn't effective because the driver turned the radio off, and a pit that was tried immediately failed. A team worth and their technology worth the equivalent of $3 million USD failed in a matter of 30 seconds. We ended up going 150 kilometers per hour with 4 cars, including myself in pursuit. In that early 2 minutes of the pursuit, we were already something like 8 to 10 kilometers down the highway. We ended up covering just under 20 kilometers in 9 minutes, where we ended up in a farm district territory on some back roads. Highway patrol will chase you everywhere, but our cars don't do that dirt road stuff very well. I eventually got to be second position in pursuit. We requested help from the farm police. We're going like 60 kilometers per hour on a bumpy dirt farm road, and I'm bouncing in my seat. My passenger seat organizer fell off, and suddenly the suspect vehicle drives off through a field, luckily a vacant plot. I don't chase off-road, just too scary for me. One of the other highway patrol guys does this in his car that's a bit tougher than mine. The suspect car ends up teasing my coworker by playing loop around the tree, switching directions, and causing my coworker to hit the tree. Suspect thought he got away. Now, Farm District Police are here. You can tell because there's a giant Jeep Cherokee with an unnecessarily high lift and suspension kit, a cherry red push bar, their Farm District logo spray painted on the truck, and 2 magnetic rotator lights on the top. Soon after, a muddy Ford Bronco with police stenciled on the front, the same cherry red push bar, and the same dual magnetic rotator light setup show up. They chase the suspect vehicle in the field and end up doing a pit at 60 kilometers an hour on dirt. Suspect car rolls. Suspect self-extricates through the sunroof and proceeds to run on foot. The farm district was too cheap for tasers, so they put 3 less lethal beanbags at his back in the space of about 2 seconds. Suspect faceplants in the creek, gets all sorts of cut up and hurt. They drag him out, and it takes all of us to carry him to the side of the road. EMS arrives and one of the farm district guys escorts the ambulance. It wasn't until this point that I figured out what the apprehension was attempted for. Our suspect was a high crime suspect, the level above a criminal offense, or level above what the USA calls a felony. He was wanted for involvement with juvenile kidnapping, sexual battery, torture, attempted premeditated murder, fetal homicide, human trafficking, and unlicensed possession of a prohibited weapon. After the fiasco he caused, he was additionally charged with vehicular evasion, reckless public endangerment, and failure to stop. I'm not privy to much special information, but I can say with confidence he's guilty and going to get either a life sentence or death sentence soon. Aside from 4 rural county cops catching a suspect with minimal equipment but the suspect evading a highly trained and equipped specialist unit, the most interesting thing to me, it's likely the suspect will be far dead or in a high level of prison isolation before I, the media, or the general public know the circumstances behind his charges. Oh god, guys, what did I say? This was gonna be crazy. Wow. I'm curious if this is Canada because, or it could be maybe the UK. I don't know. The writing makes me think maybe Canada, but I don't know. Oh, that's insane. I don't even know what to say about this. This is freaking insane. Like, can you imagine if they didn't catch this guy? Like, fetal homicide? That means he killed a baby. What? This guy is horrible. And it's a good thing. I'm so freaking happy they caught him, if that's all true. That is holy shit. Okay, let's move on to the next one because these stories are long and I'm going to try to pack them all in. So let's get it. I Spy. Posted by user My Dog Looks Like a Bear. This was back when I first started with my current department. I was still learning the geography, but I was out on my own at this point since they only had me with an FTO for a couple of weeks. I was driving through a contract town once. This is a town of about 650. The town is evenly split in half from a through highway. Not a whole lot to do and not a whole lot of places to go in this town. I was wasting time around the north half of town for about 10 minutes, so I headed to the south part on 5th Street. At the stop sign to cross the highway, I see a car coming from the east, so I'm waiting for it to pass. It turns south at 6th Street, so I head straight, continuing on 5th Street to the south half of town. I'd driven 3 blocks before I had to turn because of some work being done in the roadway. So I turn left at the roadwork because I'm driving with my left hand on the wheel, and it's much less effort to turn left than right. Literally, the only reason. I'm now 1 block east of to the 6th Street stop sign. At this stop sign, I wait for the red Dodge Ram who'd stop there a bit longer than the second or two most people give it. Dodge Ram guy heads straight through. I, who had signaled my intention very early, turned right and followed. After 2 blocks, red Dodge Ram and I meet the southernmost road in town. I plan to turn west since I wish to stay in town and most of town from here is to the west. Dodge Ram turns to the west, passes 2 driveways and pulls into a third, quickly hops out and flags me down. So I stop and roll the window down. Hey man, what's up? Why the fuck have you been following me? Following you? Yeah, I know you're game, dude. You have no reason to follow me. Yeah, you're right. I don't, and I wasn't. You're so full of shit. You think I don't notice you always driving by and watching me? I'll be charging you with harassment for this. I'm sick of it. Okay, sir. This is a town of 8 avenues and 6 streets. We're paid by your town to spend at least an hour here a day. So you spend an hour a day watching my house? Clever on his part, I have to say. Sir, step back. I don't even know who you are. I've worked for this department for a month. Liar! Fuck off! Quit watching me! Well, now I will. Later, it turned out the truck had been his grandparents' before they died a few years back, and he hadn't updated the registration. I found this as I had stopped him doing 70 through town on the highway right at the start of my hour-long patrol. It's always the ones that are so up in arms about people watching them that are the ones that are doing something. Like, always. Like, if you look at somebody and you just happen to glance over and they're like, what? You know they're hiding something. Like, sorry for even existing. Like, oh no. I waited. Posted by user eyes_of_Vader. It's the early hours and it's been raining. My longest call of the night has been babysitting for motorists who don't want to take the long way home. I'm finally free and I'm called to a popular local gas station concerning a hit and run. I arrive and I make contact with the victim. Something is off. The victim is super friendly and helpful, but his answers are oddly short on detail. He continues to attempt to explain the accident. He states that he got sideswiped on the driver's side while turning left into the leftmost lane by someone turning right. This does not compute, so I press him on it. No, already turned left. He is now going straight, still in the leftmost lane, and someone turned left into him, turning into a bank in a shopping center, where everything is mostly closed. Still, the damage doesn't add up. He's been uneasy on his feet this whole conversation, leaning against the counter. My trooper friends call this as a clue. I'll be honest, I don't have the best sense of smell. I shower twice a day because I fear having a stank I cannot smell. I finally take a deep breath. Dude smells like a brewery. He's been drinking. I ask him about it. I had a beer a few hours ago. So say we all. I push him on it, but he is not giving any more information. Fine, I'll do the report and try to piece it all together. Look, you cannot drive away from here. I can smell the odor of alcohol on your person. You need to find an alternative way home. Uber, a friend, your mom, someone. You cannot drive. You need to wait and find a ride. If I see you driving, and this is my beat, I'm going to pull you over. If another officer sees you driving, they will probably pull you over. It's cold and it's rainy, but don't test it. Find another way home. He leaves to go smoke a cigarette. Fine, whatever. I may have 2 master's degrees in the humanities, but I'm not dumb. He's going to drive away. I mess around for a bit and joke with the dude working and his customers. Finally, I'm going to use the bathroom, and I realize the time. It's almost end of shift, and I need to write the report. I skip the bathroom and head to the door. I'm parked 2 spots to the west of him. He saw me pull in. It's a marked car. As I walk out, I see him leaving. Fine, I'll get overtime for this. He doesn't get far. I pull him over, in the cold and in the rain. I come up to his window. Joel, we talked about this. I waited. Uber. I don't have the money for that. You don't have the money for a DUI either. Please step out of the vehicle. After SFSTS's, I don't know what that means, Joel blew a .16. I changed his name to this dude's name I really hate. Yeah, so good. I'm glad that there are good cops out there that do still try to prevent stuff like this instead of picking on people who aren't doing anything wrong at all. And I still know people that think it's okay to have a beer and drive. And it makes me sick. Like, it really makes me sick. It's like, you're just proving to me right there that you have no consideration for other people's lives. No consideration. And not just, in accident form, but say you're not even drunk. Okay, I understand that. But your alcohol levels, you get pulled over, you lose your license. If you have a family, guess what? You just ruin their lives because now they have to, schedule everything around you and trying to get you where you need to go and etc. Like there's always consequences for driving and drinking. Like, just don't do it. Don't do it. But yeah, like, more than that, like, you should always be valuing other people's lives just as much as your own. Like, come on, people. Friendly Fire, posted by user FBI_management. Just want to take a moment to thank all of you for the massive amount of positive feedback. I'm going to keep posting, I promise. So ladies and gents, here we are. This one was relatively recent, about 10 months ago. We had a lot of staff working that day. Full shifts plus all admin and a power shift, plus 2 rookies almost out of OJT. I was chilling and booking when a call goes out for a fight in our medium security unit. They were currently all out for dinner, and we had 2 officers back there feeding, one of the rookies plus a rover. Myself, the sergeant from booking, and the lieutenant, who just so happened to be nearby, rushed to the scene. We get there and find both inmates separated, but there is still a heated verbal altercation occurring. We move between the inmates. The larger of the 2 makes a passing remark about the other's stature. He is about 5'2" with the speed of a gazelle and the strength of a tiger. Well, Mr. Speedy Gonzalez doesn't like this too well. He shoves through us and full-on tries to tackle the bigger guy. Obviously, this doesn't work out too well in his favor. The big guy grabs him by the neck and proceeds to punch him repeatedly. By this point, we're all fighting while the rookie locks the rest of the inmates down. I commended her for having enough foresight to do so. Both of these particular inmates had several backers in the pod. We split the inmates up, and myself and one of our veteran officers, just so happens to be an ex-Marine, grab the big guy and escort him out of the pod. This guy was known for having anger management issues on the street and had a history of blacking out during altercations. Disclaimer, I had been through a fight or 2 with this guy before, and just like in previous fights, he didn't know who we were. As we were leaving the pod, the officer I was helping escort shoves him out of the door and proceeds to swing his arm around pretty quickly to brace for a punch and be ready to retaliate if this guy swings. Well, in doing so, he elbows me straight in the damn mouth and nose, and I start bleeding from my lip. Big guy decides to pick a fight with me. Oh boy. He tries to pick me up. I shove him back, and next thing I know, the veteran is spraying OC. I happen to get the back spray from the big guy's face in the midst of it all, and boy does it feel like summer sun in my mouth and nose right now. We wrestle for another minute, and by this point, some of the officers are exiting the pod to come assist, presumably because CENTCON let them know what was happening. I yelled to the rookie to go get the restraint chair, and she does. Big guy is walking down the hall now, more focused on getting the OC out of his eyes than he is about me. I'm freaking dying from the OC while the vet is walking with me behind the inmate, ready to strike again if need be. We get down through 2 of the hallways, and the rookie meets us with the chair. Big guy sees the chair. Big guy does not like the chair. Big guy proceeds to try and pick the chair up. It's at this point that big guy gets another dose of spicy deodorant to the face from the rook. Keep in mind, this is how the current scene is laid out. Me and vet behind big guy. Restraint chair in front of big guy. Rook behind restraint chair. Yeah. You see where this is going. I get my second dose of the sugar and spice as well. This time it gets right in my eyes. Now Vet is pissed because he got a good hit too, so he places big guy into a shoulder pin restraint and takes him oh so gently to the floor. Sergeant and Lieutenant are now coming back down the hall from the pod. They got Speedy locked down in isolation without any problems. Leave it to the admin to take care of it peacefully. They go and grab some milk and towels. At this point, big guy is half asleep, and the half that isn't asleep is beginning to apologize between heavy breaths and coughs. We get him into the restraint chair without further incident. I walk back down the halls to survey the damage and make sure no one lost any equipment, and I can follow the trail of blood all the way back to the pod door like some twisted breadcrumb trail from my own mouth. The injuries didn't last long, thankfully, and I didn't have a broken nose either. The vet apologized to me afterward. There was a quick session the next day about Crossfire and how it pertains to OC spray. Everyone was informed that we needed to consider our angle of attack before spraying, and also need to be more aware of our surroundings when we are hands-on. Lesson learned, and we found out that we had some pretty good rookies on our hands, albeit lacking in their OC aim. Oh my god. This is like, I was like just picturing this in like an old kind of fast forward black and white film, like kind of like the Three Stooges or like Laurel and Hardy or something like that. I'm sorry to laugh at them, but hey, you posted it here for us to laugh at, so that it could have been so much worse. It could have been so much worse, but oh god. Oh, that's too funny. The DNR, posted by user L_mono_rojo. The priority traffic cones broke me out of my red light sports talk days. All units, the channel is held for a shooting in progress. The dispatcher was calm considering the nature of the call. Charlie, 23, 24, 25, Echo 7, 10, 12, Bravo 2, starting for a shooting, 1724 3rd Street. Caller advises a client has come into the office and is shooting at staff. More to follow. I flipped on my lights and eased into the intersection. I was about a mile away and knew traffic was going to fight me the entire trip, but still, running to a hot call beat returning property to storage. Plus, being on Homicide Squad, I figured I'd need to get there anyway at some point. The radio fired up again as I mashed my Impala's air horn at a stubborn minivan. Caller still on the line, advising the suspect is trying to find his accountant. Caller states he has shot at the receptionist and is reloading. Unknown on injuries. Bravo 2, I'm direct. Start more units and I need shields and long guns. Ask the caller what type of gun we're dealing with. The responding lieutenant was already making some good strides at scene management. I pondered crossing the double yellow to pass the lines of stopped traffic ahead, but thought better of it. There's a firefighter move, and knowing my bosses, I'd be written up faster than I could say, I'll be staging up the road. A few more mashes on my air horn, and finally, a large enough hole developed in the line in front of me to ease through and into the intersection. The next block was just as congested, and the slow realization was forming in my head that this response would be a painful one the whole way. Bravo 2, I'm pulling on scene. I have citizens running from the building. First 3 units here form up, and we'll make our way to the scene. Active shooter. The lieutenant's command of the situation made for a more emphatic air horn mash for me. Maybe if I hit it hard enough, I'd be on the response team? Office work and the tedium of always being the last one to the scene as a follow-up detective had taken a toll on my previous adrenaline-packed lifestyle. Another red light and another line of cars. This time due to a merge on the other side of the intersection thanks to one of the area's ubiquitous construction zones. I cycled through my limited siren options to no avail, yelling obscenities while taking the few inches being begrudgingly ceded to my encroachment. The elderly man in front of me threw his hands in the air in frustration, echoing my sentiment at the situation. I got a shooting I gotta get to, I yelled at him through several layers of soundproof glass. Bravo 2, we have 5 on scene, making entry. Keep the channel for us and give us any updates over the air. Crap. Command 3, have more patrol assets continue in code, but under no circumstances will unmarked units continue lights and siren. Double crap. I half-heartedly hit my air horn a few more times, hoping for a miraculous parting of the sea of cars, but knowing I'd have to call it quits or else face the wrath of bad emergency response policy. Reluctantly, I flicked off the lights and siren and tried my best to pull my cruiser back into the normal lane of travel like the rest of the sardines around me. I sheepishly looked to my right at a soccer mom motorist in the right lane, who had evacuated the through lane that I was now occupying, during my blood pressure-raising response. She shook her head and rolled her eyes at me. The old man in front of me, still locked in by brake lights and thousands of pounds or annoyed, metal-wrapped, humanity shot me a dirt look in the rear view and again threw his hands up in exasperation. I drummed my fingers on the steering wheel and prayed to the deities of traffic that I'd be granted passage soon. A trio of marked cars flew past on the wrong side of the double line. Dicks. One migraine later, and I wedged my car into a barely open wedge of curb. Radio updates had been coming hot and heavy while I took much slower pace to arrive. The scene had been updated to a third-floor accounting office. Bravo 2 and his team of patrol officers heard shots as they made their entry into the front atrium and just prior to arriving at the office. The caller updated dispatch that the man had turned the gun on himself when he realized police were close. Somehow, Biggs had arrived just as I made it to the scene, so we decided we should get started with the cleanup side of the case. at least now that the fun part had ended. We met Bravo 2, one of my former bosses, inside the building's large atrium lobby and got his account. Here to take over my mess, EMR? Yeah, something like that. I flipped open a notebook and positioned my pen, ready to record whatever tidbits may be used for my report. Well, not much to it. We rolled in, heard 2 shots. He pointed up to the open-air 3rd floor bordering the atrium, and made our way up the stairs over the elevators. By the time we got there, the guy had no pulse, just the 3 gunshot wounds to the chest. I paused my scribbling. Wait, 3? Yeah, I guess that crazy revolver he was using may not have been the best suicide option. That, and maybe he didn't want to damage his head or the DNR he posted there. Now, Biggs was confused as well. DNR? On his head? Yeah, craziest thing I've seen in a while. You probably should just take a look. Lieutenant smirked and looked over Biggs and I at the coming onslaught of command staff, feeling emboldened now that the all clear had been officially provided. We good? I couldn't tell which reply he wanted from me, but figured the brass would soon pull him away regardless. Yeah, sure. Good work. We'll call if we have any more questions. On his head. Biggs and I exchanged a confused look before heading to the stairs. At the office, we were greeted by one of Bravo 2's initial entry team, Bartlett. He was leaning against the wall to the side of the large glass doors leading to the now evacuated accounting office. Fellas? We took in the view through the glass, not yet sure where crime scene would be setting up shop and not wanting to accidentally contaminate the scene. The male was seated on the floor, back pressed against the glass window and a large pool of blood surrounding him. His right hand still gripping the Taurus judge, and several spent .410 casings were scattered on the floor. The guy had reloaded at least once. True to Bravo 2's word, a piece of blue painter's tape adorned the dead man's forehead. The words, "Do not resuscitate," were scrawled in Sharpie with the letters DNR capitalized and underlined. Bartlett cockily sauntered over. Yeah, I was ready to blow the dude away, but looks like he just did the job for me. I looked at him sideways but didn't comment, instead opting to continue examining the bizarre scene. The man had 3 weeping wounds on his chest. Each plume of bright red blood made more grisly due to the contrast with his white dress shirt. Several holes were obvious on the walls and broken glass littered the floor. A metal sign proclaiming the accountant firm's name seemed to have drawn the bulk of the gunfire, but clearly the gunman had not been choosy with his targets or ammo conservation. The hot receptionist held on to me while I ran her out. Bartlett bobbed his head and put on a cocky expression. If you all hurry up, maybe I can catch her digits before I roll. Good idea. Biggs was clearly getting annoyed. How about you go find her now and leave us alone? I grimaced, but Bartlett seemed unfazed. Yeah? Nice! He stomped down the hall but paused. Y'all want anything from Burger King? I'm starving. No. Biggs answered for both of us. From that point, our job was easy. Identify our suspect. Simple, seeing as he was a client. Arrange notification to his next of kin. Son, he had with his ex-wife. And waited with crime scene to make sure that we recorded everything we needed. Biggs was able to remotely listen to the 911 call just before Bravo 2's team arrived to find the guy deceased. In it, the sobbing receptionist indicated she was hiding under the desk. The gunman entered the lobby again after failing to locate his target in the back, and the first gunshot was heard. The man yelled, "Ow! Damn it!" before a second shot. Then there was cursing, followed by a third shot, and finally, silence. Jesus, what a way to go. We lingered in silence after Biggs hung up at the call center. The traumatized, hot receptionist came back asking if we could retrieve her purse and coat. True to form, Bartlett appeared out of nowhere to linger and make awkward attempts at small talk. First time involved in something like this? He asked, seductively processing a French fry down his gullet. Before she could answer, he added, I get into stuff like this all the time. Yup. He exhaled and shook his head. It's tough being a first responder. The girl, a timid 20-something who would clearly need some therapy in the near future, just shook her head in disbelief. I was gonna go blow this dude away and save you if I needed to. Callous to the green shade his wilting and not-so-adoring fan was turning, he continued. part of a day's work, you know. He selected another French fry from the cardboard sleeve and ate it while peeking through the door at the body. The crime scene boss, a man known for being gruff even on a good day, came around the corner from inside the office and did a double take at Bartlett before shooting a glare at Biggs. Biggs shrugged his shoulders in reply. The lieutenant went to say something, but Bartlett, oblivious to the professional danger now stalking him from across the room, turned back to this thrall once more. You know, it's kind of funny. He plucked one of the last French fries from his stash and held it delicately with the tips of his thumb and forefinger. All this blood sorta looks like ketchup, right? Several disastrous events happened in quick succession. Bartlett mined dipping his fry in the bloody evidence. Crime scene boss growled an expletive. The receptionist, reaching the end of her intestinal fortitude, wheeled and made a dash for the restroom across the hall. And Big's hand subconsciously raised and smacked his forehead. The soft squish of the French fry landing in the pool of blood was drowned out by the retching sound of the receptionist not quite making it to the toilet. Bartlett was immediately at a loss for how to recover both his fry and his machismo, and the lieutenant turned a shade of purple I would usually associate with ripe grapes. "Get the hell off my scene!" he screamed. Bartlett made 2 half jabs at grabbing his fry, but opted instead to scamper away. The crime scene tech stood, jaw on the floor, glancing from the fry to the hunched-over receptionist and the trail of vomit ending before the bathroom door. I moved to comfort her, motioning for crime scene to just give me her property so we could get her out of there, then guided her to the elevator and an awaiting coworker. Back at the scene, the lieutenant was still raging, and crime scene pressed the hurry up button. Biggs seemed at a loss for words, but I felt the need to get something out. Those fries did look pretty good. Okay, I'm really torn because I really think this is just a work of fiction. Like, it has to be. It has to be. That guy needs to be fired. Why would you bring food into a crime scene, first of all? I'm not even a freaking cop and I have the brains to realize that. Oh my god, this has to be. This is just too well written to be true, too, I think. I think this has to be fiction. Come on, guys, back me on this one. This has to be fiction. And if it isn't, that guy should not have a job in that field anymore. Like, he needs to... He's kind of a psychopath a little bit, talking about dipping fries in blood. Yeah, that guy's a psychopath for real. Alright, my dudes, I normally do 8 stories, but I think I'm only gonna do 5 today because these stories are all super long. And I picked this one because I love zebras, and it's posted by 2 blue zebras. So, yeah, this one is called Following Orders. I can't swim. It's my kryptonite. I took multiple lessons throughout my youth and never picked it up. My academy had swimming as a requirement. I knew that going in, so I spent a few months trying to learn. Best I got was being able to do a dead man float, almost. Back float was completely out of the question as I sink like a rock. Luckily, the academy didn't want anyone to die. On our first of many swimming days, the instructor said, "If you can't swim, raise your hand." Also, luckily, I was one of about 10% of my class who couldn't swim. The instructors didn't like this. What in the world? I've never seen this many useless rocks. Those who can't swim, grab a life vest. So we grabbed a life vest and did laps in the pool for about 20 minutes, which each lap having us get out, knock out 20 push-ups, and jump back in. When I say I can't swim, I was even the worst of the people who couldn't swim. The instructor stood by the pool watching everyone. One singled me out. 2 blue zebras. Sir, Cadet 2 blue zebras, yes sir. 2 blue zebras, you are the worst swimmer I've ever seen. You couldn't be trying any harder not to be swimming. Sir, Cadet 2 blue zebras, yes sir. That was the easy part. Even though, as someone with no swimming technique, I was completely gassed by the end. The hard part was jumping off the 15-foot diving board into the deep end without the life vest. You know the phrase, sink or swim. I sank. Every time. They kept other cadets in the water as rescue swimmers. I got rescued every time. We had a couple people who refused to jump off. They spent an hour up there, wouldn't do it. They could swim, but they were afraid of heights. As punishment, the rest of us got to run triple our normal run every day until they finally jumped. It took about a week for them to finally jump. It was psychological, and they wanted people to get over their fears. After PT was done, one of the guys who repeatedly pulled me out came up to me. "Man, I actually admire you. Pulling you out of the water is like pulling a rock out. I pull the other guys and they're pretty easy, but with you, it's all dead weight. But you still do it." I let him know. It sucks for me every time, but the order is jump, so I jump. Oh my god. I don't know what to say. This is how I learned how to swim. Somebody just threw me into the pool in the deep end. That's how I learned. That's how I learned to swim, and it was a girl that was responsible for babysitting me that did it in a public pool. Just picked me up and threw me in. And years later, I ran into her at Home Depot. And should I have said that? I don't know. She was working there. I don't think she's there anymore. No, she's not actually. I've seen her somewhere else. But anyway, I seen her at Home Depot and I brought it up. She's like, "I don't remember that." Oh my god. Yeah, dude, you almost killed me and you don't remember that. Oh, and you have children now. Oh, dear Lord. I couldn't do this, what these people do. Like that whole, the order is jump, so I jump. Maybe I have, what do they call it? ODD, something, defiance disorder? Maybe I do. I don't know. Alright, my dudes, I hope you liked that video. If you did, let me know in the comments, because if you didn't like it, I won't do this subreddit anymore, but I thought it was pretty interesting. So, yeah, if you liked it, hit that like button. If you didn't, let me know in the comments why you didn't like it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification, otherwise YouTube won't tell you when I'm posting these videos, and that would be a travesty. As always, the links to these stories will be in the description, so head on over to Reddit and show those posters some love with some upvotes, because you know they deserve it. And my dudes, there's 4 or 5 different ways for you to submit your stories to me. Just look in the description. I got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and Reddit, I think. So post your stories, my dudes, and they will end up in my videos. Until next time, you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.